All right, here we are. So we covered the chronology and looked into the basics of, I just briefly will go through that to refresh our memory. So chronology that starts from 6000 BC according to Tilak. By the way, Sri Aurobindo supports this idea. Tilak discovered in Taittiriya Samhita the evidence in the nakshatras that it was composed in the time when the particular constellations are described, and it belongs to this time, 6000 BC. So if Taittiriya belongs to that time, and Taittiriya is much younger than Rig Veda, much later composed, and so it looks like Rig Veda is much older. So we do not know which time it belongs to, and it doesn't matter because the um, the hymns are speaking about the time from the beginning of time. Yeah, so even if it would be composed today, it doesn't mean that it is young. It is as ancient as it speaks about. Yeah, because the notion of time, historical time, is totally different from the time of creation. Or if you go deeper in the consciousness, you dive deep. So the time notion is changing totally. And what about Trikala Drishti, which Sri Aurobindo possessed, seeing all times, yeah, from the beginning till the end, in the future, in the past. So this historical approach that we have to have time frame is it belongs to scientific mind, to our mental structure, which was not the case. They didn't care about time at that time. So Brahmanas start from 2500 BC. They were composing the explanations on Samhitas. They were kind of trying to recapture the knowledge of Samhitas in a new fashion and apply it to ritual. The Brahmanas ritualized life. Yeah? All the rituals which we know today, yeah, they come from this Brahmanic literature. It was the way to reactivate the knowledge of Samhitas in some way. And all the myths were written, composed in that time. All the explanations given to who is who, and who is Indra, who is Agni, and all the stories were first composed in Brahmanic period and then were taken by Puranas. Many of these stories we know from Puranas, but they are composed in the Brahmanic period. Sri Aurobindo says it was the first attempt to recover the knowledge of the Veda when it was lost. So they found their way with the rituals and mythology. Then there are Aranyakas, which are part of Brahmanic literature. They are part of Brahmanas usually. And then there are Upanishads, which are part of Aranyakas, at least in the ancient Brahmanas, such as Aitareya Brahmana will have Aitareya Aranyaka, which will have Aitareya Upanishad. The same Taittiriya Brahmana would have Taittiriya Aranyaka, which has 3 chapters of Taittiriya Upanishad. So Upanishads were part of Aranyakas, Aranyakas were part of Brahmanas, but according to the scientific mind, they kind of belong to different periods of creation.
Can I ask something that is maybe not relevant, but
relevant
in my mindset? Like the whole Sangamam poetry literature that is in the south of Tamil Nadu, where would that fit in this time space?
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, Tamil Nadu, it is, all the Tamil literature is they consider it to be very old, but truly speaking, it's not as old, of course. It does not belong to these periods of 1000 BC or something. It's all already closer to the 100 AD, starting from the oldest one, you know. I'm speaking scientifically now. I'm not speaking from the point of view of some people who think differently. Tamil People, especially now, they consider Tamil culture to be as ancient as Sanskrit, and even sometimes even more ancient. I do not know why they consider that to be. There is no evidence whatsoever. I mean, you cannot find it. It's not available, at least to us.
Yeah.
But there is some kind of, political trend, and also, you have to be proud of your culture. So, and they think that more ancient is more relevant or truer. But there are no more ancient or less ancient cultures, truly speaking, because they are all originated somewhere. They developed.
Exactly.
So French culture is as ancient as Sanskrit because it came from somewhere. It had stages, At that time, it wasn't called French. It had different view on itself. It called itself differently. Same with English or Russian or any other. So it originated from the same source. It's just for the scientific approach, it doesn't make sense to speak who is more ancient or older. In this case, even Sanskrit, what we are looking at, it's as ancient as any other culture. Only we want to know when these texts were composed, or
that is the fascination that we have with the time, that we want to know who preceded what and how did it come to birth.
Correct. We want to know the origin. This is the part of the mythical structure which always looks back to the origin. Yeah? It's quite interesting because in the mental structure, the cause is there, but it is less important. Mental structure redirects attention towards the future and generating new things rather than looking always and trying to figure out who is older. So this mythical structure in us, what we think, mythology, and those fairy tales of our grandmothers, they take over, and then, of course, they are not scientific and not correct. They belong to another time dimension, as ancient as any other. So Upanishads, yes, I'm not introducing here Tamil culture, as you see, or any other Prakrit.
That's why I felt it's not relevant, but still I felt like asking.
Yeah. Well, Sri Aurobindo has a marvelous work which is called The Origins of Aryan Speech, where he compares Sanskrit and Tamil. And he says that the union of these two belongs to the very ancient past. For example, the most ancient vocabulary from Sanskrit would be found in Tamil, such as Amma. Amma is Amba, Sanskrit word which was not used after all.
Yes.
He finds many more things. He says that Dravidian culture in Tamil is not really different from this Aryan culture. Western scholars tried to separate these two and to make them of different origin. That Tamil and Dravidian culture was resisting. It was original, aboriginal nearly, and then the Aryans invasion, they came and pushed them to the south. That's why we have evidence in the north and in the south, Dravidian culture, and in between it is populated by Aryans.
Yeah.
But he says it's not so. At least he doesn't see it at all as meaningful. He finds that even anthropologically, Tamil culture is the same as you. They are a little darker because they live in the south, but the features of the face and bodies
very
are
similar, and some of
similar.
the rituals and aesthetics are also very similar.
Right. Language is quite different, though, and Tamil is has only 40% of Sanskrit vocabulary. 40. It's the most original language among all in India. If you take any other Dravidian language, Malayalam, for example, it will have 89% of
Yeah.
Sanskrit vocabulary.
Malayalam, yeah, from Kerala.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you take Telugu, yeah, and then you will, from Andhra, you will find that they have also 85% of Sanskrit vocabulary. It's nearly the same as Hindi. So it's quite interesting that Tamil sustained its own originality, only 40%. They do not allow Sanskrit words easily to come in.
Even in the prayers of the priests?
No, but that is all in Sanskrit, of course.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and here we have a problem, yeah.
That's what I find fascinating, that then all of a sudden everything becomes Sanskrit.
Yes, the whole Brahminhood is Sanskrit. And
regardless where you are in India.
Yes, it was always like this from 6000 BC or before. So, but there are, of course, other religions which are not Hinduism. For example, Buddhism or Jainism. They developed their own languages. So Buddhism is using... Yes, they use Pali originally, and then other Prakrits. But there are also hybrid Sanskrit, Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit and Jainist hybrid Sanskrit. They use also Sanskrit, but simplified, kind of adopted Sanskrit. Yeah? Simple grammar, and nearly everybody could understand it. But nevertheless, all the religions known to us, except Aboriginal religions, so those which are magic, in nature, maybe they are also partially come from the source of the Veda somehow. You can see that even Buddhism, Jainism, they deviated from Hinduism. But even deviation from them, they adopted the same terminology, the same psychology, and they fight with that psychology, and quite right, in a right way, because they fight against ritualism of Brahmanas. They don't like this ritualistic approach without the spirit, so they wanted to have a knowledge, psychological change, and that was
that's why they separated, you think?
Correct. But what Buddha speaks about nirvana and all that, he took all the terms, all the practice he took from Hinduism, and then he made his own Buddhism. The same with Mahavira, he took everything from Hinduism, and then he spoke his word, or Sikh religion, and so on.
It's just 1 hour that I'm here. From 1 to 2.
But Vladimir, it's like, how did they actually start to realize that the Vedas, that they had lost the Vedas in a certain way? What made them really, like the Samhitas, what made them start the search for what had been written before? Or not written, but, expressed before. Why did they search that?
It's a big question. We do not know how and why. It's like a Renaissance. Yeah, it's like Renaissance in India, which is taking place now in 20th century. It started. Why? Because there was historical, so to say, situation which again demanded that knowledge. That knowledge was there, but in the spirit, in understanding, it was lost. By the way, it was never recovered by none of these. It's quite interesting that they tried.
Never entirely recovered the real meaning.
No. It created another meaning, layer upon layer, new meanings. It created culture, that culture, Hinduism, which we know today as India, that many layered culture with many approaches, with And that's why it is so tolerant also. It's integral from the beginning. It created all kinds of approaches. In India, you can worship anything you want, you know. You can preach anything you like, and nobody will object to it. You can also lie, go and lie about it, you know. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, if you have followers, they like it, they find something there. You may lie about it, but the followers find the truth. So it's no problem.
Beautiful.
Mm. They don't care about you lying. I believe in it. I found myself there, something for myself. So then,
yeah, why not?
Yeah, and nobody is judging nobody in this case. Yeah, that's the beauty. In our country, it would be immediately checked whether you're saying the truth, and from one of the
or in Oroville.
Oroville, yes, also the kind of.
In Oroville. There's a big thing right now going on.
I know. It's quite strange what is going on in Oroville. We become more and more stiff.
Yeah. It's shameful. It's shameful because we do have a certain responsibility to leap into enacting life differently, you know, and it's shameful that we keep falling back into these childlike behaviors. Bureaucracy
and regulations more and more, suffocating.
And more right, very suffocating.
And but that's why Mother didn't want Oroville to be under any political, you know.
We kind of sold out. We sold out to the Indian government.
Yeah, and now if Indian government will change or will change policy, what can we do? Nothing. So some people are lucky to be Indians. Yeah, they have no problem with visa.
Exactly.
Myself, for example, I am blacklisted because I worked in Auro University, and I didn't know, because before I worked in everywhere. Kiri Joshi brought me to ICPR, introduced me to all kind of organizations, and I was happily working with them. I created MA program in Vedic studies for IGNU. It was, it was even accredited. There are people who finished that MA program. And never was the case, you know, before. But now suddenly it became so stiff. So then, oops, I never could imagine that I will be out by the law of India, you know.
Yeah.
So
but
now
I heard that people are working for you to be able to come back. So there is also a movement of people that are concerned and are really concerned that this should not happen again.
Yeah, well, I apologized already that I didn't know. I really didn't know. In 2016.
None of us knew this. None of us. It is all of a sudden,
And when I found out, it was already too late. We changed the situation. I've changed. So, it was already, I paid Indian taxes to Indian income tax, you know. I thought it was so fair, it was honest, you know, but I shouldn't have done that. So anyhow, but this is not really fair to if it is for a long time, it wouldn't be fair. If it is like a warning, it's okay. First time I made a mistake, I apologized, I would never do it again. Now I understood how it works. But if I hear other cases, person made an exhibition and cannot come back, exhibition, or even people go for seminars to Pondi, we cannot invite people to our seminars if they don't have.
Which is a real tragedy, because what is Oroville about? It is about unending education.
Yeah.
So what do we do? I am grateful I can still, attend your Vedic course through this. Of course, it would have been even more delightful to do it in live, you know.
Yeah, well, that goes online. Maybe online they will not catch us, but otherwise.
To even think that they will catch us is mediocrity.
It is coming to that. Unfortunately. Anyhow, we didn't follow the mother, and we have it now. she was right in every single bit in piece. If you'll read what she says, what we have to follow, we didn't. Now we have to do something, but maybe it is already late. Yeah, all right. Back to something more optimistic. So here we have a shift from Upanishadic time. We have a shift to Sankhya and Yoga, and this is a huge shift. It is the introduction of mental structure for the first time. The difference between the two, we will look into it. We will see that Upanishads are still thinking in terms of intuitive mind. Yeah, they are not yet in the mental precision of the mental structure, conceptual precision. They are more in the intuitive precision. Yeah? They are very precise with their terms, but they are operating with broader universal perceptions. And but already there is a shift in the Upanishads. There is a shift towards individual consciousness. They speak about the faculties of consciousness: seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, feeling, and being in the body. These are the gods for them. So it's a pure psychology, but it drifts towards individual perception. You can see that when we speak about seeing and hearing, thinking, it's about us individuals, though these are universal faculties. In the Samhitas, it's even more universal. Yeah? It is about these universal faculties of mind. Indra is intuitive mind, which can be applicable to all of us, and not only human beings, but animals and all other kingdoms. So the whole nature is responding to intuition of Indra, or rising the Agni from the depth of nature, this aspiration in nature, which is also in us, in human beings. We can articulate that aspiration, but it is seen in every creature in the world. So that universal view is drifting towards more and more individualistic or conceptual. It's being narrowed, and it's being crystallized, and being, more and more focused on a particular detailed vision of things. So Sankhya and Yoga, it's the first drift.
Can I ask, like even before the Samhitas, the rishis did not also call on these forces in a way, in a very personal way, because it had to go through them. So it was also a personalized expression of these universal forces also. Is it not so?
It's very interesting. When they invoke, we will read hymns, you will see that they invoke for us, come to us.
Yes.
Not to me, not
yes.
through me, not I. You will never find I.
It's always we.
Yeah, that's yes, but nevertheless, it enters the human.
Yeah, definitely. And they speak about the human peoples.
Yeah.
The very thing that they say human peoples, that means that there are more peoples. Yeah? So when they want to specify, they specify that, Manushi week. So we will have the Visham, which are Manushim, who have mind. This is human beings. But those who do not have manas, mind, they are other beings. They are also Vish, the peoples who are coming here. By the way, the very term Vish, peoples who are populating this world, is from root vish, to enter. It is the souls or entities who entered this world. Yeah? So it's quite interesting. You will see in the terms everywhere it is being suggested some deeper view or knowledge. But Sankhya, what Sankhya does, it builds up around the mind. Yeah. So manas is the sixth sense, is fed by the senses, indriyas. So all the information comes from the senses to the mind. Mind selects it, analyzes it, and chooses what to see, what to hear, as Yajnavalkya would say, it is not by the eye that we see, but by the mind, not by the ear we hear, but by the mind. So mind is in charge of every faculty. And this is the shift. It wasn't so in the pre-Sankhyayic paradigm. Not the mind was choosing everything, but there was something which was behind faculties of consciousness. That was Purusha. Some presence, some consciousness in every faculty. So mind was one of the faculties, equal to speech, to sight, to hearing. You could have received knowledge through the sight, or some independent knowledge from the mind. And this we lost. We do not have that consciousness. We are thinking only in terms of the mind. It's quite interesting. We will look into it more in detail later when I have special introduction to Sankhya and Upanishads, that shift from one paradigm to another. So we have three shifts of paradigms. Samhitas, well, more than that, but briefly. Samhita is something archaic, integral, where the mental, mythical, and magic structures combined give us more authentic view on life. Then we have, yeah?
Sorry to interrupt you. The Samhitas, are there any written texts?
Yeah.
Is there anything written?
Yeah, they're nowadays they're all written. Rigveda Samhita, Yajurveda Samhita. Yajurveda Samhita has 4 ascensions. I will go into that details. I will give you all the names, what Samhitas we have, what Brahmanas we have today, what Aranyakas Upanishads by names, and if you have some questions, we can dive into some texts to see the difference between them if you want to.
And last Sunday, you had mentioned also that you wanted to send us what you had already compiled and written.
I didn't.
But
Oh,
you didn't.
I will send you now. No problem. This is the article was published in the Foundations of Indian Psychology, by the way. That's the comparison of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy with Veda,
Yes.
Vedic views. But yeah, I'm just doing it approximately here. It's not the same, but the article gives all the references you can find. So here we have drift. So once the mind is in charge of all the faculties, it is the mind who decides. Then we have ego sense, and then we have buddhi above ego sense, ahankara, and then we have Purusha. Yeah? Purusha, who is attending to Prakriti. This view is totally of the mental structure and belongs to our modern scientific paradigm today. We also believe today that every knowledge has to be coming from senses. Yeah? If senses do not give us evidence, there is nothing to talk about, all imagination. We do not believe that there can be knowledge which is not fed by the senses.
Which is received by imagination itself, is not believed.
Yeah, which is received by imagination is not knowledge. It's an imagination, we believe. And this is due to the Sankhyayic paradigm. But we didn't know one simple thing, that senses are not only tied to the object of sense in the outer reality, in the physical world. You know? They can have their own objects of sense within their own vital reality, within the mental reality.
Which is then tied to imagination.
Exactly. So this is as simple as that, but we do not believe because we do not know the technology of these senses.
And that's why we do not believe in the intuition and in the paranormal and
and anything else which is not objectively manifested in the physical world. And we think that these are not senses which are providing us with the same information. We think that something else is there going on. But these are the very senses. We see inside, we hear inside, we think inside.
We smell inside.
We smell. We also feel inside, that feeling, the sense of reality which we receive. And we have even touch inside. We can touch different entities, different beings, different movements, and they are all available and the sense of touch is there. So
does that find a place then later on in the Itihasas and Puranas and Tantras?
yeah, Itihasa Puranas Tantras, yeah, a few words about these. Puranas are taking the mythology of Brahmanas and put it into the language available to people. These are the stories spoken to people. Some of them are profound. For example, Vishnu Purana has huge 5 volumes. And this is the whole encyclopedia of Hinduism. You can find everything there. And there are 18 Mahapuranas. Yeah? It's the whole literature. And there are 18 Upapuranas, smaller Puranas, which are also huge literature. So this all mythology, it's quite interesting to read, like stories, fairy tales, yeah? About gods and people.
I think most of us are spoon-fed with them growing up in India. We get the Puranas read to us or through teachers, through, I'm sure.
Yes,
no?
yes.
Growing up in India, you.
Sure. My daughter also grew up on these Puranas.
Yes.
When she was small, I was reading her from Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata. So all those stories are, and for Indians, it's even more. You know, they see it everywhere, hear it everywhere. In temples, from grandmother, from the when in India there was Ramayana going on, you know, on TV. You remember, yeah?
Yes.
So there was nobody going to work.
No.
Because on TV there is a serial going on. So India, it's so, you know, open to this mythical knowledge.
And the Itihasas?
Itihasas are histories. Itihasa, it is like thus it was indeed. If I translate literally, this was thus. And they, together with Puranas, we can say, going together with them, the same year, same period it was written, and of the same mythological nature. India never had historical knowledge. That's so kind of interesting. You never know who was who. Yeah? If you take Kalidasa's literature, Kalidasa wrote 12 or around this, a dozen dramas. But there are more than 150 dramas signed by Kalidasa. You see, people who composed those dramas, they didn't mind to put Kalidasa's name. So
to identify with Kalidasa. I mean,
yeah, and not with my own my copyright.
Yeah.
The same with everything in India. You never know, you know. Vyasa, for example, composed the whole Mahabharata and all the Vedic literature, all the Vedas. How come one person? Just name Vyasa. There is no name. So India is...
And that also over a time period of more than 500 years. So did he live 500 years? You know, these are the questions then that the Western mind has, no?
Yeah.
But in India, it's not relevant. Copyright is not relevant.
No.
I think the name is more of a belonging to or something like that.
Yeah, name is more important than really time.
Yeah.
And time somehow has stopped, you know. Something is going on, but it's not really important who. It's important who was after who. It's quite interesting. They will give their lineage, but to what time it belongs, nobody knows.
Yeah, interesting.
So, and Tantras. Tantras is another huge literature. There are too many of them. There are Kashmirian Shaivism, as you know, and there are Vaishnavic Tantras, and there are Shaktas, and it's a huge literature. There are too many of them. It's the biggest number, I guess.
And how do they relate then to the Puranas?
Oh, they are related directly. I think one comes from another, or even they are mixing up. So you would even sometimes you don't know where to distinguish them. The commentaries on these stories, on these Puranas, become tantras. The commentaries on the commentaries. This is the whole tantric tradition. Tantra means thread, lineage, so to say. It is, but tantra is considered to be Veda for Kali Yuga. So it's a Vedic knowledge for Kali Yuga. That's also an interesting approach. Kashmiri and Shaivism is the closest to our integral yoga. Abhinava Gupta, and it's nearly like Sri Aurobindo when you read him. It's very profound. What else to say about tantras? We will look into the concept of the word, and there we will see tantras.
If, as you say, that the tantras are like for the designed or created through the Kali Yuga, then is it to give hold to humanity, or to give insight, or to lift up, or to remain on one certain level, or why associated to being typical for Kali Yuga?
It's Veda of the Kali Yuga. Yes, if Veda belongs to the Satya Yuga, then for Kali Yuga it is Tantra. Yes. Sri Aurobindo says that there were 4 great syntheses of knowledge in India. 4. First is Samhita texts, these Vedas. Second was belonging to the Upanishads. Another great synthesis of knowledge. He doesn't take Brahmanas because it's just a commentary for him. And then there was Gita, great synthesis. And finally Tantra. There are only 4. So it's, although it is...
The Gita doesn't come here in your chronological...
Right. Well, I didn't put Gita separately because Gita is a small book. Yeah, it's a small 700 verses. So I put it flows into
Upanishads.
It is considered to be one of the Upanishads. Iti Upanishads, Gitasu Upanishads. Thus, in the Gita's Upanishads, it's every time it's finishing the chapter. Strangely enough, because
interesting.
Because they wanted to separate Gita from Mahabharata. So Gita is taken out of Mahabharata and put into the Vedic canon. So in the Vedas, in Shruti, we have all these 4 up to Upanishads plus Gita.
Yeah. So it's always added on to. I'm finished at 2 o'clock. Sorry.
Yeah. And then darshanas. Darshanas is that what is known as philosophy. So we have Sankhya, yoga systems, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Charvakas, and Vedanta. 6 systems of knowledge. Even Charvakas are included. Charvakas are materialistic systems who believed that materialism is enough to study, and the materialistic approach was very interesting. That why do you need to study anything else if you already have an embodied in the body the spirit? So you follow it and you will discover things. Quite honest materialism.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Very different from what is known as materialism in our way. Okay, these darshanas are important because they are building all that philosophical Indian philosophy as we know it. You most probably heard of all of these systems of knowledge. Yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutras belong to yoga, darshana. Sankhya of Karikas belong to Sankhya, and so on. Nyaya and Vaisheshika, very important logic and atomistic theory atomistic theory is also very profound. They believe that every element in this manifestation is a unique manifestation. There is no, there are classes, but everyone, there is no replica. And in that sense, it has its own vertical relation with the spirit. So quite unique systems, and Vedanta also, of course. Okay.
But they must have found their inspiration from all that has precursed it, you know. That has,
of course.
Yeah.
What is interesting, when I attended to many conferences, I always noticed one interesting thing. When somebody speaks, for example, I as Vaiyakarana, I belong to grammatical tradition. So when I introduce some topics from the point of view of grammar or philosophy of grammar, philosophy of language, then others who are coming from different traditions, Nayayikas or from Vaisheshika, so they would listen to it very carefully. They would not object to it. They would be happy to see different views.
Yeah.
They are not jumping. Yeah. They are not jumping.
The perspective.
Correct.
And it's not opposing, it is enriching, it is enlarging.
Right. And
it is inclusive.
You will not find this in Europe.
No.
When you speak from one point of view, others would immediately argue. But always, but this but comes first, and then everything else follows. No, immediately. No, first. Why, no. It's another point of view. Here, it's always happiness that they found another point of view. And I thought, well, where is it coming from, really? Why?
Yeah, this is how I felt I grew up also, and the confrontation of that there is something opposing that narrows down, that excludes and makes exclusive and creates this thing of belonging to a club. You know, you are a club and memberships rights, and it's a different way of living.
Right, and you have to win your way, you have to prevail, you have to be accepted. This comes later in these debates, which were made, debates between different traditions in India. There were many of these vivadas and debates among different traditions, and Shankaracharya won, for example, his place in India debating with Buddhists. But again, it is not on the level of not appreciating different point of view. Anyhow, I understood it comes from samhitas, from this unique integral view on things, where all possible views are accepted if they are true. And Sri Aurobindo even says that Veda is not logical. It doesn't try to confute anything, doesn't try to put anything into order of what is right, what is wrong, never. So if the reality is there, experience is there of a particular kind, it will introduce it, even if it is contradictory in logical terms to other experience, previous one. They don't bother about this. It has to be true to the experience. And this is something unique, then of course reality is much more complex than you can put it into the logical terms and satisfy the mental symmetries and so on. Then when mind comes and dominates our views, then we are trying to always systematize, always to present it to the mind, that mind will be satisfied. And here we lose a lot of that reality. We narrow it down.
Can I say, like during the, during the Samhitas, it was more intuitive, because like you were saying, the mind is not as organized. So they were experiencing the truth of in a very intuitive way. It was really, I don't know how to say.
Yes, it's more intuitive.
And mind did not exist in the same way as it is now. So it was very intuitive, and it was really by inner experience. Their inner experience was very real. during those times.
Correct. So this narrowing down of the mind from the vaster mind behind towards narrow, and more precise, significance, unique and precise significance. This is what is happening in this history. From Samhitas, where the mind is very vast, it doesn't mean it is not precise. It is just vast and deep. And we do not see the precisions of that vast mind. We lost that capacity to be vast and precise. So, and when we are narrow, black and white, then we see. We became blinded, we see only contrasted things. We do not see the hues and shades. We lost.
At that time, they did not see it like that, the way we see it now. They did not see that.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this case, of course, Indian tradition offers us something unique, because within one language, we can see the shifts of paradigms through long periods. So we can learn to think differently, to perceive differently through these different perceptions in the texts. That's what Sri Aurobindo did. And then he presented this integral view, where all of these can be presented in one view without contradiction. Even with narrow precision of the term, concept, it can sustain the depth behind of all the hues. But that capacity we have to gain. So that's why this scheme is kind of showing us the scope of this development and the shifts of paradigms. We will come to the shifts of paradigms in the later presentations. Here I was covering that in the Veda, consciousness was seen as projected from the Divine Mother as the Divine Mother, Aditi. And the Divine Mother had many different faculties, which are called sons of Aditi, Varuna, Mitra, Reman, Bhaga, Daksha, Amsha, and Surya. These are major faculties. And there is Vivasvat, the eighth son. And there are many more groups of gods, which are all coming from Aditi. And her sister, twin sister, Diti.
Yes.
I was mentioning Vivasvat, it's an important myth. The eighth son as a creator of the universe, who represents all the seventh sons, but was left alone in the darkness. In other views, he stolen and hidden in the darkness, subconscious cave by the Asuras. Yeah, so I want to finish with this. So this is a brief what we went through. Varuna represents the vastness of the being, Sat, Mitra, the divine consciousness, Chit, Aryaman, the divine power, Tapas, and Bhaga, the divine Ananda. These are the four guardians of light, as Sri Aurobindo calls them, the mother's faculties, or sons of Aditi. Adityas. And then there is Daksha, supramental knowledge force, which unites everything. Amsha, supramental many in one and one in many. And Surya, Savitri, as Sri Aurobindo calls him. Not only Surya, but Surya Savitri. It's quite interesting. He coined this term. I am using it.
Surya Savitri.
Yes. So Surya is a part of the being. Savitri is the part of action or part of willpower, knowledge. So supramental manifestation. So we have two Diti and Aditi, two twin sisters.
Are they like we have Lakshmi and our Lakshmi, It made me think of our Lakshmi and Lakshmi.
Well, Alakshmi is a very rare term. I don't know where you got it. It's actually only from the Vedic, in the Vedic terms was used.
It's because I got it from the practice in the kolam. There is our Lakshmi.
All right.
She comes in the practice of the kolam on occasions when our Lakshmi is active, we are not to make any kolams. Yeah.
All right, interesting that it's already there in the culture. It's a very rare term, Alakshmi, But it is used exactly in the hymn to Sri Devi, to the Lakshmi. There, Lakshmi also has her powers.
Yes.
And she's not that who is not rich. She is rich, but her powers are different. Her powers, for example, all the wealth what we think today about, we think about wealth as it is Lakshmi. It's not true.
No.
It's not true. It's rather a Lakshmi.
Lakshmi is actually the holder of this material kind of wealth.
Right, and very aggressive. And
yes. And Lakshmi is the wealth of all the other wealth of beautiful thinking and beautiful feeling.
Harmony, yes.
And harmony.
If there is no harmony, Lakshmi would not come.
Exactly.
So where is harmony in this world? Just look around.
That is more Lakshmi is doing.
It's more Lakshmi. And so there are powers such as panis, who are traders and traffickers of wealth. They are actually stealing wealth, stealing our psychological or spiritual wealth, right? And hide in the subconscious cave, and then they trade it. But they do not know the value of it. They know that it is valuable, but they do not know what it is.
It's real value.
Yeah, it's real value. So they know it only by trading, that they can sell it for some price. Getting the price, then they know that it is valuable.
And that also gives them the justification of their existence.
Exactly. Yes, so right. It's quite interesting, because if you look into our world today, you will see that it is exactly they who rule.
They are the ones governing at the moment. And this is what we need to turn over. We need to re-establish that Lakshmi consciousness.
Yeah. I wrote...
is this related to Aditi?
Yeah.
That was my question. Is she then
yes.
in direct relationship with Aditi?
Well, definitely. Lakshmi, Aditi, Lakshmi is the one of the manifestations of Aditi.
Yeah.
Well, we have 4 powers of Aditi, of the mother. And these are the 4 powers.
Mahalakshmi,
yes.
Saraswati, Mahakali.
And Maheshwari, right. So if you look at them closer, we will see that here they are. You will immediately see them. Maheshwari is Varuna, the vastness of purity. And then Mitra, Aryaman, will be Mahakali. Mahalakshmi is this Bhaga. And Daksha, Amsha, and Surya, the triple supermind.
Is Saraswati.
Is Mahasaraswati, exactly. So the reflection of the two. So Varuna is not the highest purity of the divine existence. It is also the lowest, the darkest material manifestation of the being. So everywhere where the being is, on all the levels, it is Varuna. On all the levels of consciousness, it is Mitra. On all the levels of force, it is Aryaman. So one can imagine that it's difficult to draw, but it's kind of reflected. So the highest divine being is reflected in the lowest existence of matter.
It's so beautiful, actually, to become conscious like that.
And that's why it is confusing, especially those who study the Veda, how Varuna can be
also in the other level.
Darkness, or that, dark force, and night, representing night, if he is the luminous Aditya, the first of all. They can't figure out that it is possible. But it is possible in their view, because they are not logically, responsible for what is real. You don't have to justify everything logically. But it is quite logical anyway. So here we went through the whole system. I will show the system. This is the major thing where we stopped. And I think this is a very important system, because it gives you the whole overview of how Vedic rishis saw the worlds. So
What
this,
is the state of Svar? There I got a little bit stuck. I couldn't relate properly the word. And then the supermind. And
there,
Svar is what?
yeah, Svar is the world of the rays of the sun. If supermind is the sun, yeah, the body, then Svar is that where the first rays of the sun come into the darkness and meet the darkness. So when darkness attack from one side to the sun, and sun meets the darkness, that creates this realm first of the rays of the sun.
And that realm is Svar.
This is what Sri Aurobindo calls overmental realm. Yeah?
The overmental realm.
Right. Overmind.
Before the supermind.
Yes. And this is also triple overmind. Yeah. So it has intuitive mind, overmind, and supramental overmind, which is the closest to the supermind. I'm not right.
If we are supposed to develop these stages of the mental capacities, how do we do that in our education? How do we start to filter these things? How to It's a big question.
This is a huge question, not just big. This is the question of all we are here for. Yeah. Yes, there are many ways to do it. It depends most probably how we do it. Yeah, I think all ways are good. It depends on how you do it, with what opening. Yeah, opening, dedication, aspiration. If you follow yogic way, most probably you will realize it in whatever you do. In the Vedas, this was described as the 10th level. Yeah, so we have 9. You see here 3 times 3, and these were called Navagva rishis.
Rishis. When you come to the 10th level, basically what you're actually doing is you're coming back to the one.
Yeah,
you're coming back to numerologically. You're coming back to the one, and then new cycle starts.
Yes. Here is 1, and then it again starts 2, 3. There is another 1, 2, 3. There's three rochanas, 3 luminous realms.
Yeah, 3.
But even breaking to the first is enough, because you're already out of this lower hemisphere. This is a lower hemisphere. Yeah. This is the mind. Triple mind is 3 heavens. It is our heaven. Yeah? It is the triple vital is our the vital world.
The 3 rochana, is that related to also the mental, physical, vital, and mind, or is it?
No, it relates to the
pure vital.
Trini Rajamsi, you mean? This, you mean?
No, in the Svar column.
Trirochana is not that. I will show Trirochana. Oh, here they are. Trirochanas are supramental over mind, and intuitive mind. That's in Sri Aurobindo's terminology. And 3 heavens is illumined mind, higher mind, and mind. So,
so this is now a step further. We have not yet looked at.
We didn't come even to higher mind yet. Yes. Even with mind, we have difficulties.
Very difficult, because we are not educated with the mind. We have not yet found the formula to educate the mind. There are attempts, I feel, but most of the education is like almost to prepare you to become a slave of the system.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And you have to obey the system and blindly obey.
Blindly obey all the rules and regulations. Your mind is conditioned to obey the rules.
Yeah, you cannot ask a meaning of that, what they try to express, and nobody will answer to you. It's quite interesting.
They can't even answer to it. It's a bother. If you start questioning, you become. You create holes in the system.
Right.
Sabotage.
Exactly. But that is the capacity of the higher mind when you question any mental concept, yeah? Because then you will be not trusting the form of the concept. You will be looking for the reason, for the meaning of it, why it is there, what it is function for, whether it is helpful or not. If it is not helpful, why should I follow it? Or why should I blindly believe in some, rules and regulations which are mechanically applied, blindly applied.
And there is also the theory that in that their time essence becomes crucial, because to doing things on a certain time rhythm that is fixed to the norm, you comply to that governing enslaved participatory system. But when you slow down things and you start to stretch them, then you kind of drop into another realm of space and time, and then there the mind allows other things to enter.
Very, very true. That's why Mother didn't want this, rules and regulations for Orville.
Yeah.
When they came to her and said, but how would we know who is right for Orville, who is not? We should have some rules and regulations. And she answered, as long as there are no rules and regulations, there is still a hope. Still hope for Orville. And what we did, just look at this. We just did the opposite. Yeah. We did the opposite.
Yeah. And we're still trying to create more rules. To filter more. What do we want to filter? I think already if a person comes out of free will and makes the effort to come all the way, then there is an intention, no?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, of course. And if it is not trusted, why is he coming there? What is he there for? If we are not trusting person, what are we going to do with him? Okay, he will obey rules and regulations. And what else then? What are we doing? Yeah. Why to go through all that trouble only to obey rules and regulations? The world is for that. So that's, I totally agree. That should be some other system.
So there we then need to learn to make the leap from the mind to the higher mind.
Right. And that opens up to this intuitive later. Intuitive is even higher. Then you will see even that your freedom, what you received, is not the final say. There will be even a higher view. Okay, I must stop here because I already took over. Sorry, I just felt that I have another thing. So I couldn't finish what we did.
I'm really sorry. So many questions.
But it's so lovely to communicate. Please always do this, because that's what it is for. It's the meaningful discovery of things in this context of today, of our lives.
Thank you so much, Vladimir.
I'm so happy to be with you. It's fresh breathing, from being here in Norway alone, sitting. All right. Okay, great. So, yeah.
Have a good Sunday.
You too. All right. Okay,
Goodbye.
See you. Bye-bye.
I'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah, see you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Grace.
Bye, Savitri.